Hello, everybody. Welcome. Tonight, our guest is Vaughn Reynolds, Alport syndrome patient, former dialysis patient, and current kidney transplant recipient. Vaughn is a retired U.S. Army veteran, retired federal air marshal, and kidney advocate with the American Kidney Fund and Kidney Solutions. Vaughn served in the Army for 21 years and an additional 20 years in the federal government as a federal air marshal. Prior to 2023, Vaughn appeared to be in good health and excellent shape, having an extensive military physical every year and meeting military standards for fitness. As a result of accompanying blood tests, protein showed up in his urine and his cholesterol was elevated, but this was originally attributed to genetics and family history. The doctors felt that this was because Vaughn was slightly overweight. As Vaughn says, quote unquote, one day out of the blue, I felt sick and lethargic, unquote. His wife, Tony, took him to the emergency room. His blood pressure was 195 over 115. The doctors there said he had, quote, some type of renal failure, unquote, and referred him to Walter Reed National Hospital. At Walter Reed, Vaughn was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease and end-stage renal disease on February 23rd of 2023 after a battery of tests, including a blood draw and a biopsy. Vaughn was diagnosed with Alport syndrome, a genetic disorder characterized by glomerulitis, end-stage kidney disease, and hearing loss. As a result of the diagnosis, the doctors told Vaughn that he would either have to go on dialysis or have a kidney transplant by Christmas. His nephrologist said that his kidney function was so bad that if they had a kidney that day, he would have been transplanted that day. Vaughn was encouraged to go on peritoneal dialysis and to have the PD catheter installed in his stomach. On August 24th, 2023, the PT catheter was installed as creatinine levels were rising and his eGFR was decreasing. On August 31st, he began his home PD training. By October 12th, peritoneal dialysis has begun with his eGFR at 7 and his creatinine was above 7. That same week, supplies were delivered to his home. However, on October 17th, during his second day on PD training, his transplant nurse, Gina Whitney, told him, quote, they have a kidney for you. So on October 17th, 2023, Vaughn had his kidney transplant. Since then, to give back, Vaughn has always been willing to help out his fellow kidney patients and is a very active kidney advocate for the American Kidney Fund, the C. Allen Foundation, and Kidney Solutions, a not-for-profit that mentors kidney patients. Please give a warm welcome to Vaughn Reynolds. Vaughn, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, Jim, thank you for having me. I'm doing great.
Good. Did I get everything right in the introduction?
Yes, sir. Everything's just about right on point.
Please tell us a little bit about where you grew up, your education, and your employment experiences.
Okay. Like I said, my name is Vaughn Reynolds. I'm a 60-year-old male. I was born on August 3rd, 1964, in Fort Benning, Georgia. My dad was military. My mom's not. I was raised in Fayetteville, North Carolina, right outside of Fort Bragg, which is now called Fort Liberty. With my two brothers. I have an older brother, Leon, my younger brother, Keith, who has since passed away years ago. But raised up there my whole life in Fayetteville. Went to Westover Senior High School, go Wolverines. I joined the Army in 1982, right after high school graduation, because it's kind of like one of those things is you grow up next to the post. That's kind of like where you go. And so I joined the Army in 1982. I went to basic training at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Then I went to my advanced individual training as a computer machine operator, getting a computer programmer at Fort Ben Harrison. And then lucky me, I joined the military to go see the world. They sent me right back to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. So I went right back home. That's where I met my wife at. And my wife, she was in ninth grade when I was in 12th grade. We didn't know each other, but my younger brother introduced us. and we were married in June 22nd of 1985. So we're getting ready to hit 40 years. So from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, we drove all the way to Fort Richardson, Alaska, in Anchorage, where we spent 6.5 to 7 years in Anchorage. 8 years in Anchorage. My daughter Chelsea was born there. From Anchorage, we drove out of Anchorage to MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida. Was my next duty assignment. Spent a few years there. From there, I got sent to the Pentagon. Right, that was in 1994. I went to the Pentagon and stuff. My youngest daughter Taylor was born in Bethesda in 1995. From there, from 1997, I left going to Fort Lewis, Washington, and from Fort Lewis, Washington, we went up to I went to Korea for a year. Stayed in Korea for a year. Then from Korea, came back to Fort Belvoir. Let me jump back a little bit. During that time, I changed MOSs. I went from computer guy to undercover CID agents, kind of what they call United States Army Criminal Investigation Command. We're the FBI agents for the Army. So I did that. Then I went to Korea. Came back from Korea, worked protective services, which is almost like diplomatic security. But one of my principals was William S. Cohen, the then Secretary of Defense. Eric Shinseki, General Shalikashvili, Dr. William Perry, worked around those folks. Came back, started working in the gang task force at CID headquarters, and then 9/11 happened. That's because I was just getting ready to retire. Had retirement orders laying on my desk. And when 9/11 happened, I got put in what's called stop loss. So we had to wait. A friend of mine who I was working with at the time, he said, hey, they're reinstating that Air Marshal program, the Sky Marshal program. He said, you should apply for it. You've already been traveling those years, going to put in for it. So I put back in for that, got picked up. So I retired from the Army August 31st of 2002. I went to work with the Air Marshal September 7th, 2002. So I had all of a 7-day break in between. Went with the Air Marshals, stationed here at the Washington field office, stayed here for 20 years. And I retired on September the 10th of 2022. And that's when I thought, hey, it's over. It's great. Had a fantastic time, and I retired.
Okay. You've mentioned a little bit about your family. You're a married guy to Tony. Tell me a little bit about Tony.
Tony, she's fantastic and stuff. Her dad is Canadian, and her mother is from the U.S. Her dad is, excuse me, her dad is one of the only 100 Canadians that come south of the border during the Vietnam War and joined the U.S. Army. She's a wonderful wife. She is a photographer by trade. So she was raised up in the Fayetteville, North Carolina area also. And we got married very young and stuff. I think she was 18. I was 21. We got married. And we've been together ever since. She is the love of my life. She is my everything. She's my rock. She supports me. And I am just, my heart still flutters when I think about her today, other than the first day I met her, which is coming up here. I met her November 22nd of 1984.
Wow.
Oh, I'm sorry, 1983. I never forget that the first time I laid eyes on her.
And you mentioned you have 2 children?
Yes, I have 2 daughters. Chelsea is 35 years old. She is a fine arts major. And right now she's working in the accounting field here in Northern Virginia. We live in Woodbridge, Virginia. And my youngest daughter, she is an archaeologist. She graduated from Appalachian State University, and she's an archaeologist with a minor in anthropology. And right now she works for the invasive plant species of Virginia here in Northern Virginia also. Chelsea, 35, I think I said that. Taylor will turn 29 on the 24th of November.
And I understand you have a grandchild?
Yes, that's Marilyn Rose Fox. She is my heart. I call her my little rosebud. And so she calls me Pop Pop, and she calls Tony Gam Gam.
How cool is that? Prior to 2023, what was the state of your health to the best of your knowledge?
I always felt I was in pretty good shape. Now, I started gaining weight. I was getting fat. I was getting heavier because in the Air Marshals, it's kind of Sedentary lifestyle, because you're on planes a whole lot. You fly like crazy. You go to overseas, because we fly on all U.S. flag carriers. You go overseas, you get a hotel. You're exhausted. You get a chance to eat all over the world. I think I have 6,269,401 miles flying for a total of over 3,110 miles. I mean, 3,110 missions is how many missions I flew. So that kind of it added into the sedentary lifestyle, but that's my fault because I stopped running so much. I said, okay, I'm going to ease up the whole spiel. Then I started gaining weight, but I would still walk a whole lot, lift, and train. But I always felt pretty good. I got the physicals every year. They always said, hey, you're doing pretty good. You know, keep up what you're doing, lose a little weight, the whole spiel. So I noticed my cholesterol started going up and my blood pressure started going up. But I was all told by my doctor, oh, you know, you're predisposed, you're a black guy, your mom had it, your dad had it, the whole spiel, so that's probably what it is. And I said, okay, and that's what I went with.
Okay. You mentioned that you were an air marshal. Can you tell us a little bit about what an air marshal does?
Air marshals, I said, we're called civil aviation security specialists. Okay, we're the guys who fly on the planes and stuff like that. We provide security to the passengers, to the aircraft, to the crew, and to the passengers of all U.S. flagged carriers.
Okay. And you've mentioned to me before, as a child, you were diagnosed with blood and protein in your urine, and that was kind of dismissed by your doctors.
Yes. Since I was a military brat, my dad's retired Army also. I have my medical records dating back to 1967. I saved everything. And I went back and I started going through my records after when I retired. And then once I found this stuff out, I started going back through my records, and I have all the lab sheets, everything. And they were going back, and all this was on the old paper that they wrote on. I always found blood in my urine, like +2, +3, +1, a little bit of protein. And my mom would take me to then Womack Army Hospital, and she would always say, she says, something's not right. She says, something's not right about what's going on here. There's no explanation for this blood in my urine, right? But they never could find it. So it's kind of like, yeah, for lack of better words, it was dismissed because no one could find it out. I was told, hey, you might just be an anomaly, the unicorn out there. We can't find it. Even in the military, between having the dye injected, looking for diverticulitis. At one time they called it marching syndrome, which is something in the military is close to what they call rhabdomyolysis. Or if you run or train too much and stuff like that, your urine can turn really dark and you can start dumping blood out that way. But they never thought it was rhabdomyolysis. Some of the things that I always noticed, let alone from the microscopic hematuria and the protein, when my urine, you go to the bathroom, the toilet, it would always foam up, be very foamy. That's something I always noticed that. And I said, it must just be, it is what it is. I didn't know. So fast forward to all that, we can get my physicals, the whole spiel. No one ever found it. But one of my doctors, Dr. Jeffrey Melrose, he was one of the doctors, contract doctors from the military. He said, Vaughn, and I know this now because now since I know more about EGFR, creatinine, and all these other terms, he said, Vaughn, he says, I think your creatinine's a little high. Now, I heard creatine, right? Because that was what we used to pour in the powder, drink that, to lift and get strong and stuff like that. He said that. I said, okay. I said, well, then I'll stop drinking the creatine. And I did. And stuff. So then as doctors go, Dr. Melrose, he ended up going, he moved on. Then I kept getting other doctors and stuff, but I was still getting tested. And then I never heard the word creatine or creatine again, never heard it again and stuff. But small symptoms started coming into play. And so the ones I already mentioned. And then I got gout, right? The worst pain I've ever had in my life. If you would have gave me a rusty saw, I'd have cut my own hand off. But it hurt so bad because it came up in my feet and then came up in my hands. And I said, I don't know where this is coming from. But they did blood work and they said my uric acid was like off the charts. And so, they started off with 700 milligrams of allopurinol and started going down, 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 down to right now. I'm on 300 milligrams of allopurinol. And one of my doctors, she said, well, I think that's too much allopurinol. And I said, but you sent me to rheumatology, right? Which gout is a form of rheumatology, right? And arthritis. So I said, you sit me there. If it's too high, what's the problem? Me not knowing that gout with the uric acid is another telltale sign that your kidneys aren't working because that uric acid wasn't being flushed out.
Okay. I understand that one day in 2023 you felt sick and lethargic, and your wife took you to the emergency room. Can you tell us what happened on that day?
Right. I just left Fayetteville. It was one of my niece's birthday. So I said I had dinner with them and I was coming home. I was driving from Fayetteville to the Northern Virginia area to my house, like 335 miles point to point. And as I was driving, I was just like, I just don't feel well. I said, I just don't feel my normal self. I thought maybe I was sick, had a little bit of food poisoning, something like that, but I wasn't feeling well. And the closer and closer I got home, the worse and worse I started feeling. Now, my brother, he lives in Richmond, Virginia. Okay, so there's across the border, there's Petersburg, Virginia, there's Richmond, Virginia, and then I was just about 50 miles shy of my house in Fredericksburg and stuff. And Jim, I stopped and I was feeling so bad. I was feeling lethargic. I was really drooling at the mouth. I couldn't focus. Right, I felt dizzy, the whole spiel. And I was sitting in the parking lot, and I said, I don't know whether I should drive back down to Petersburg to Fort Lee to go to the emergency room, B, call my brother and have him come get me, C, call 911 and say something's wrong. I go down, and I've never been one to call 911 to go to the doctor. I said, or just push on and get home. And being classic hardhead, I like to say, I pushed on, got home. And I got home, and I literally had to hold myself up in the car just to get in the house. I have my own little blood pressure cuff. And I took my blood pressure, and it was like 195 over 115 and going higher. My wife said, we're going to the emergency room right now. Now, prior to me going home to Fayetteville, I saw one of my other doctors for another appointment, Dr. Kemp, at the Dumfries Health Clinic where I go. Great guy. He said, your creatinine is very high. He says, I'm concerned. He says, I'm going to make you an appointment at nephrology at Walter Reed. I said, okay. Now, irony being, my appointment was at Walter Reed at the 23rd of February. That was the same day that my wife took me to the emergency room at Fort Belvoir. And when I was in there, they did all the work, and he said, why? They said, your blood pressure is so high. They said, we may have to admit you tonight. So they did a bunch of tests. He says, you're in some kind of renal failure. We're going to send you to Walter Reed. I said, but I have an appointment at Walter Reed today. At Fort Belvoir Hospital, they said, you're not going anywhere. You're staying right here until we get this blood pressure lower. And then we're going to get you an emergency appointment at Walter Reed. So the next day, on the 24th of February, I went to Walter Reed at nephrology for an emergency appointment. And I saw my doctor, Dr. Baker, Lieutenant Commander Baker. And did all the tests, did some blood work around it. He says, hey, I'm gonna step out and talk to my supervisor real quick. We'll be right back. And I got that feeling. I said, when the doctor steps out, says that, when they come back in, ain't nothing good coming back in with him. So he stepped out and he came back with his supervisor, Dr. Yarbaro. And they told me, and I'll never forget it. He said, you are in stage 5 kidney failure. He said, your kidneys have come to the end of their lifespan. He said, CKD or end-stage renal disease. And I sat there, and it was like I was in shock. I couldn't hear nothing. I couldn't say anything. I was just there, and I was just numb. And it's like you can hear someone talking, but it's echoing, and you can't really hear it, right? And he grabbed my shoulder. He said, Mr. Reynolds. I said, yes, sir. He said, did you hear what I said? I said, you said something about kidney failure, and my kidneys aren't any good anymore. He said, yeah. I said, no, this can't be right. I said, not me. This can't be right. I said, Doc, I just retired. I said, I'm getting ready to do a bunch of stuff with my wife. I said, go check this again. Check it again. Check the numbers. I said, check it twice. He said, we checked it 3 times already. He said, you have it. He said, we wanted to be sure. And he told me, he said, I'm telling you right here, right now. He said, at stage 5 with your, I think my EGFR was at 4.35 at that time. He said, and your creatinine was at 15. Right? He said, if we had a kidney, we would transplant you right now. He said, your kidney function is so poor. He says, you are going to need dialysis, you're either going to be on dialysis or have a kidney transplant by Christmas. He said, didn't you know any of this? I said, no, no one ever said anything about this other than the doctor I saw last week. I was never told anything, right? So he said, yeah, he says, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. He said, but that's what you have. And so I said, so I had to drive from Walter Reed back to my house, which is 48 miles, right? And I was just in tears the whole way going back, and I had to pull over. And I called my older brother, Leon, right? And I told him what happened. He said, where are you right now? I said, I just left the hospital. I'm getting on I-270. He said, are you pulled over to stop? I said, yeah. He said, I will come there right now. He said, you wait in that car. I will drive from Richmond right now to get you, and I'll drive you home. I said, no, Leon, that's okay. I said, I think I can make it. He says, you're not in no shape to drive. So he stayed with me on the phone for the whole drive back, the whole time talking to me and uplifting me in prayer, the whole way back. So I got back in the drive. I got the car parked, and I sat there for a few minutes thinking, what am I going to tell my wife? What am I going to tell my children? Got in the car, got in the house, and told my wife, I said, call Chelsea and Taylor, have them come over. And she said, what's wrong? I said, I need them over right now. And then she knew something was wrong. And that's when I told my children. I said I have end-stage renal disease, kidney failure at stage 5. And even when I asked the doctor, I said, what happened to stage 1 to 4? He said, you blew past those already. He said, this is done. And never in my life have I ever heard something that was so painful that they said, a part of your body has come to the end. Oh. And that's what happened.
How did they arrive at the diagnosis for Alport's? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay. My parents have long since passed. My mother and father were divorced, and there wasn't a good relationship there. And they were saying, okay, give us, and they were going through everything. They said, give me your family history, right? Does anybody else in your family have kidney disease? And I said, now my dad, they say he died of renal failure, but he had a stroke prior to that. But we believed that because he was a Vietnam veteran twice over, that he had Agent Orange poisoning, and that affected his kidneys. But my uncle William, who has since passed also, he was on dialysis because I remember when he came over to visit and stuff like this, I was driving around. He made appointments at the Davidic Center, which I didn't know what that was. But I remember seeing his arm, and he had the big fistula on his arm. And my Uncle Marin, he was in kidney failure, but we never knew what it was. And he was the longest surviving dialysis member in Fayetteville. He was on dialysis, hemodialysis, for 25 years.
Wow.
And he was the longest surviving dialysis patient in Fayetteville, North Carolina. But he's on he married into the family, so he's not my blood uncle. So they said, okay. They did all that work and stuff. He says, okay, said, let's do a biopsy. He said, we have to do a biopsy on you. But it took him a while because my blood pressure was so high, the top number, they couldn't get it down. And they said the kidneys, they're very cellulous. He said, if they poke that kidney and your blood pressure so high, it's like poking a wellhead. He says, and you can just bleed like crazy. So they tried one time, 2 times. They never could get me in. And finally, my wife, like I said, my hero, she said, you're going to put him in the hospital overnight. Because we were driving back and forth to Bethesda. We stayed in a hotel over there one night, and they just couldn't get my pressure down. And she said, you will put him in the hospital, and you will get his blood pressure down. So I stayed there. I got there early that day, stayed there overnight. They gave me some of the medications and stuff. My blood pressure went down. They did a biopsy. Okay. In the meantime, they said, well, we're doing the biopsy and stuff. When he came back, he said, the first thing he asked me, Dr. Baker and Dr. Ybarro, he said, were you ever in like a training accident in the Army or a car accident? I said, no. He said, I've never seen kidneys as bad as yours. He says, your kidneys look like you've been in a car wreck. He said, I had 0 functioning glomeruli in my kidneys. And we know those are like the small cells that filter everything out. He said, you have zero functioning glomeruli. He said, there's something else here. There's no way that's going to happen as quick as it did. So they sent me over to genetics. And they did all the genetic testing, took all the blood and stuff. And they came back because they put a rush on it. And they came back in 3 weeks. And they said, you have Alport syndrome. If you hold 1 second, I have the book right here. It is, let me pull it out. You just bear with me 1 second.
Sure.
Nope, not there. Other file. Let's see. Let me see. You know, I should have had this prepared. I apologize that I'm not better prepared.
No worries. Do you remember what your symptoms were at the time they were talking about Alports?
Even still with the symptoms of Alports, I never displayed classic symptoms. Okay, because he said I have Alport, which is called AL3CO4 is what it's called. And Alports, it is a genetic mutation in the base membrane cells. It normally affects kidneys, eyes, and hearing. And it's one of those heady things like the XX and XY chromosomes and stuff like that normally is passed from the father, right, is where it comes from. And it normally goes on to males. Females can have Alport syndrome, but it rarely affects them like it affects males and stuff. Now, they were amazed because normally when you have Alport syndrome, you have young kids that I'm in one of the Alports group with, young kids taking blood pressure medication from anywhere from lisinopril to Maxide and all these other things to get their blood pressure down low, because the OODA loop you get into is that your kidneys are bad, so it makes your blood pressure high. But your blood pressure stays high because your kidney's bad, and back and forth. And that was the loop I was in. So when they came back with that diagnosis, they said it was utterly amazing that they call mine late onset, because I got my hearing tested all the time. And I was exposed to loud noises in the military and by the airplane engines. My hearing tests always came back fine. But and my vision now, I wear glasses, but they said, okay, you know, we're getting older, we're getting glasses. And I wore glasses when I was young, but it wasn't too bad. They said, it's amazing that you're not deaf or you're not blind as long as you've had Alport syndrome. They said they said this is just a very, very peculiar case of Alports. And they said, in all my symptoms and circumstances, I'm in like the 0.2 percentile of the country that have this way. A lot of people, they have the COL-A43 gene. They said, but normally that shows very, very early, and I showed no symptoms whatsoever.
Okay. What was your reaction to being diagnosed with Alports?
At first, I didn't even know what it was, because they said collagen. And I said, wait a minute. I said, but doc, I said, I'm African American. There's lots of collagen in my skin. She says, no, not that kind of collagen. She said, it's the collagen in the base. They call it the basement membrane cells, is what it is. They don't even know where it comes from. It's a very rare disease. They said, overall, Alports, and there's so many variants of it. Alports affects 1 in every 50,000 to 60,000 people, right? It affects 1. And of that, in the total country, there's like over 350 million people in the country. Maybe 3% of the population test for Alports. A lot of doctors who I spoke to, my PCMs and stuff, they said, wow. They said, we heard about Alport in medical school, but we never met anyone who's had it. And one of my doctors, he said, you're quite the unicorn. He said he's never met anyone who had Alport syndrome and stuff. But my medical team now, it's a fantastic team. They all work together. And between my PCMs here in the Dumfries, Virginia area, and my nephrology/transplant team at Walter Reed, they all work together really well. But as far as how I felt, my first concern was for my brother and all my other siblings, because they said the Alport gene can travel down through anyone in the my blood lineage of the last name Reynolds. So my brother, he was the next day, he said, I will donate a kidney for you the next day. But he was disqualified because Walter Reed has very strict things. If you're on 2 blood pressure medications, it counts you out, right? But also they said anyone with the last name Reynolds or in your bloodline, they would find a highly suspect that I could take a kidney from them, because if I have Alport, okay, mine was dominant, they could have Alport and it could be the other word, non-dominant. So they said, okay, yeah, recessive. So they were saying, we don't know about that, but no one in my bloodline, because it's only my older brother that's left, and then some nephews or stuff down the line, and but they're all very young, starting their own families right now. And I was hesitant, not knowing. I said, well, I don't want to take a kidney from you because you might need it later on in life to host Bill, not knowing what I know about transplants right now and effectively living on 1 kidney. But I did massive readings about Alports and kidney disease and renal failure and all that. And as my one doctor, Dr. Baker, he said, be careful about reading on the internet. There's far more chaff than there is wheat out there, and a lot of snake oil salesmen. And I fell for a lot of them.
You said that they gave you a choice between dialysis and transplant. It's my understanding that you began training for home dialysis, peritoneal. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Right. One of my mentors, Armand Halter is my mentor.
One of my best friends in the whole wide world.
Right, best friend, best guy ever. Armand, because I met Kidney Solutions. I don't even know how I met. I can't remember. It was Kent, Armand, Shannon, and then they told me about you because you were doing the Parrot Exchange. So I met those folks, and then I'll go back and talk about the Sea Island Foundation. And they were trying to they say, as Kent says, let's get you transplanted. And so they were working on that. I had to run through the battery of tests. I mean, from cardiology, urology, all those ologies, the whole spiel. PSA was high, getting biopsies of the prostate, which is not comfortable at all. Cardiology, they found out, they said, okay, you also have a little bit of AFib. They said, oh, you can live with AFib, it's no problem. So they said, hey, okay, we're gonna put you on Coumadin and to keep your blood thin and stuff. But with Coumadin, you can't be on Coumadin and have a deceased donor. So they said, okay, well, let's get you off the Coumadin and let's get you on Eliquis because it's easier for them to work with. So it was going round and round with a battery of tests and whole spiel. And then when I finally got everything done, because I'm one of these over-the-top kind of guys, and so I said, I need these things done. These have to get done. I want them to get done right now. So I really pushed the envelope and got everything done real fast. And the transplant team and the clinic, they said, well, we're impressed. They said, because you're really into this. And Armand, he recommended that I go with PD dialysis because it's better for you. It's easy at home, And I was thinking, I don't know if I could do this. I don't know. It was a lot of work doing it every day. And upon that diagnosis of kidney failure and dialysis, I thought my life was over. I thought I'm gonna spend the rest of my life chained to a bed, chained to a dialysis machine. I can't go anywhere. I can't do nothing. I can't take my wife any of the places that we had dreamed of. And I said, I felt my life had been snatched away so cruelly. I said, because after all these years and stuff, and now I'm finally going to start enjoying the hard work. And I said, I can't do it. And Armand, he said, get that out of your head. He said, you stop feeling that way right now. And so that's when I said, okay. I said, if you suggest it, Armand, I'm going to go with it. And so I started getting all the information about PD because my first thought was, okay, I'm going to have a tube hanging out of my belly. With my diagnosis of kidney disease, I felt ashamed. I felt dirty. I felt unclean. I just felt terrible all the way around. One thing I've always prided myself on was when my kids were little, and I said, anywhere I'm on the planet, if you say dad between the D and the A of dad, I would be there for you. I would always be there. And I said, with this dialysis I was going to have to go on, I was going to be strapped to the machine. I couldn't go anywhere. And I felt that stripped a big part of me away and stuff. But I said I wanted to live. My clinic here suggested I go to psychiatric. Well, let's hit it, the psychiatrist, the therapist. And I went and saw a therapist, well, Dr. Stephen K. Ban, one of the best doctors out there I saw. And we talked about that. And luckily, his wife had a transplant on a kidney transplant. So he was quite familiar with the transplant stuff. So everything was just, I consider myself just super lucky, super lucky. So I decided on PD transplant. I lost massive amounts of weight because when I retired, I was 317 pounds, and I started training and lifting and running even harder. When I went in for the PD evaluation, I was 257. So that's a drop of 60 to 70 pounds. I just dropped it off like that. And I even went and got a second opinion from Dr. Gregory Wang here also at Northern Virginia Nephrology Associates at a Fairfax Hanover Hospital. He looked at it. He says, yeah. He says, Vaughn, there's no denying it. You have it. He says, but you have the numbers right now that a nephrologist would dream of. Your weight's down, everything. You're doing stuff the right way. So Dr. Baker at Walter Reed, he says, okay. He says, your numbers are trending down. And I was doing everything. He said, your numbers are trending down. Let's get you ready to get surgery for PD dialysis. And that's how that started.
Okay. When was your PD catheter installed?
Okay. My PD catheter was installed August 24th of 23. And when I decided to finally go with that, it was my dietitian who spoke to me, Mrs. Gibbs. And she was sitting there talking to me about potassium, phosphorus, proteins, and all these things back and forth. And I told her, I said, well, ma'am, I read this book and I did this and holistically, and I read all these books and all these videos, the whole spiel. And she looked at me, she slammed her hand down at the desk. She said, Mr. Reynolds. I said, yes, ma'am. She says, look right at me and listen to what I'm saying. She said, stop fighting this. She said, you soldiers, you never want to hear this. She says, you cannot run from this. You cannot train your way away from it. You cannot lift your way away from this. Stop fighting this and accept it for what it is. She says, because the sooner you accept it, the faster we can start getting you healed up from it. So another sobering fact that day. So I said, okay. So on the 24th of August, I got the PD catheter installed. And so I stayed in the hospital overnight, got up that next morning, and I said, well, we're going to wheel you down. I said, you will not wheel me anywhere. I, with my bag, put the bag in a wheelchair, and I walked from one side of Bethesda Hospital to the other side, right down to the dialysis clinic. And I told them, I said, I'm here. So you guys, because the first thing they want to flush it to make sure there's no clogs or anything in it. So went over there and they flushed it, and they said, okay, you got to come back once a week for flushing so you can see how it works and you can start understanding PD dialysis. Because I thought it was going to be like a big vacuum cleaner hose attached to me or something like that. It's just a small tube, no bigger around than the tube of an ink pen. So started doing that. Meantime, I was trying to get listed everywhere I could and stuff. So I listed myself at Walter Reed. That was my main hospital. Fairfax Hanover, which is another transplant center. George Washington, which is here in the area. Georgetown, which is here in the area. John Hopkins, which is just up the road in Baltimore. And then went so far as the Bullet Zone down to Duke Chapel Hill. Those centers also. So because it was all within the 250-mile zone. And they all say, well, yeah, that's great. You can get here quickly if I had to drive. So did all those things and stuff. And when all the paperwork was in, they backdated my availability list to May the 19th, which is my wife's birthday. So she said that was the greatest present she ever got, was the day they listed me for the 19th. But like I said, my actual surgery day was the 25th of August to get the PD catheter installed.
All right. I understand that on August 31st, 2023, that's when you first began your training for peritoneal home dialysis. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like?
Yes, sir. That was the day. It was 1 week after the surgery. They gave me a chance to heal up. So I went back. They said they taught me about peritoneal dialysis is when they put this. It's basically sugar water, which is a solution between 1.5 2.5, and 4.5. It is yellow, green, and red. What I call the lime, the lemon, the lime, and the cherry is what I call it to get a better wrap my head around it. And Armand told me how to do it. He coached me along with it. And I went back and you sit there. They show you how to take the catheter off and stuff. You open the cap up. They show you the bag of the fluid. You hang it up. You clean you have to sanitation is the key. Washing hands, washing face, drying everything, sanitizing the area in the field, the whole field you're around. So they did that. They hook up the bag and they hook it up and you watch the fluid drain down into your stomach. Okay, so it goes in. That's called the fill, and then it has to dwell inside of your peritoneum for however long they feel it is, and then you drain it out because it helps pull out all the yucky stuff that your kidneys aren't working on. Okay. It goes in clear, comes out like a yellowish. It looks like urine and stuff, and it comes out. So they said, okay. They said, yep, the flow is good in and out. And the one thing I noticed is that you go in, and you don't have to fill your belly up like a big Winnie the Pooh belly, but you know there's fluid in there, a liter of fluid in you. And then I walk around the clinic for a little while. So they say, we're just doing this to get you used to it so you know how it feels. Go back and let it drain it out. Sometimes I would get the worst cramps coming in because the drain would come out, and it felt like literally my knees were being pulled up to my stomach.
Ouch.
It's how bad I was cramping. And so they said you eventually get used to it. You can slow the drain down, this and back, so you can do that and stuff. But I always get the cramps. You can take Tylenol, or you can just take Flexeril for some of the things. And while we're on that mentioning, while I was in the military and all that time, we're given massive amounts of Motrin. Like I said, we call this vitamin M or Ranger candy. We call that Ranger bombs. And I found out, the more I know, is that people who are in kidney failure or any kind of kidney failure should never, ever, ever take NSAIDs. Never take NSAIDs. And at the amount that I was prescribed and taking them, it just hastened along my kidney failure. So,
no ibuprofen, right?
Ibuprofen, Motrin, Advil, anything with NSAIDs in it, none. No, it is a no-no completely. So,
okay.
And then and that's why I started learning about that, and then that's when I started doing the PD training. So I was training once a week for a whole month.
All right. Talk to us about your second day of PD training and your conversation with your transplant nurse, Gina Whitney.
Okay. I was going back once a week because with Dr. Beck, he called this baby dialysis, or taking sips from a straw. He said, we want to get you ready so you don't crash into dialysis. He said, because if you crash in, they'll go in through your neck port or going through your chest. He said, we don't want to do that. He said, because my numbers were trending, kind of like the stock market, up, down, but it's trending downwards. And so at that time, my EGFR was down to 8. And my creatinine was over 7, very close to 8. So it was Monday that I was sitting in there. And Mrs. Whitney came in. Well, it was Friday. That was the day I started the training whole spiel. And so I did that. And they said, okay, come back on Monday and we'll start the full week. We can come in here 7 days a week and we'll get it all done. They delivered all the supplies to the house. It was like over 65 boxes of dialysate, the whole spiel. And I literally had to change my spare room in my house around. All the boxes were lined the walls. I put the double bed in there, the dialysis poles, the whole spiel, and that was going to be my dialysis room. And it was heartbreaking, I said, because for the first time, other than being deployed to different zones, that me and my wife, I wasn't going to be able to sleep with my wife. I said I was going to have to sleep in that room by myself. She was heartbroken for the whole spiel. But we said, if this is what it takes me to stay alive, this is what we're going to do. And so that Monday, I was in doing the dialysis, the whole spiel. Mrs. Whitney, she stops by. She says, hey, Vaughn, how's it going? I said, it's going good, Miss Whitney. I'm doing some training. She says, hey, I just want to let you know that we might be having some kidneys coming in. We might. She says, you're number 3 on the list. There's 2 people in front of you, but I'm just letting you know, just in case. She said, but no, I just want you to be aware of it. I said, okay, what should I do? She said, well, pack a bag, put it in your car. Just be ready just in case. I said, okay. So I went home. It was that Monday. Packed a bag, put it in the trunk of my car, the whole spiel. Tuesday morning, I got up early to drive to Walter Reed, Bethesda. And at 8:30, and I still have the message on my phone that I saved. I said, "Hey, Mrs. Whitney, any word on those kidneys?" Nothing. So I said, "Okay, God," I said, "it's not my time." I said, "I just started. It's not my turn just yet." Got in, left the bag and everything in the car. Didn't even bother with it, the whole spiel. Get in the chair, sat down, started doing my training, the whole spiel. They said, "Okay, today we're going to put a bag of a 2.5% solution in you so you can see the difference in it." And at 10:30, I was sitting there, and they just put a bag of fluid in. Miss Whitney pokes her head around the corner. She says, "Hey, Vaughn, how's it going?" I said, "It's going fine, ma'am." I said, "I'm just sitting here." She said, "You got any plans for today?" I said, "No." I said, "I'm training for the rest of the day." She said, "Good. We got a kidney for you. Drain the fluid out of him." Because
All right.
she said, "You were number 3 on the list. We transplanted one of the kidneys. The other person couldn't take it." She said, "Do you want it?" I said, "Well, yes." She said, "Good. Take the fluid out of him." She said, "Go get your bag and come on back." Because as you said, Kent said, Armand said, Shannon said, the first kidney you get, you take.
When in doubt, take the kidney, baby.
So I got it. So they were draining everything out of me and stuff like that. I was standing there. The PD nurses were right there trying to get out of me. My doctor walked in, Dr. Baker, and he said, "Never," he says, "in my medical history or in the history of Walter Reed, have we ever seen someone come this fast, that happened just this fast." I said, and they were just tears are flowing, the whole spiel, stuff like that. So I had to literally, they put the cap back on. I had to run back over to the parking lot to get my bag. I called my pastor, Josh Todd of Inspired Baptist Church. I said, "Pastor, they got a kidney I'm going in." He said, "God's working miracles for you." I made a little bit of prayer. I called my brother. I said, "Leon, they're transplanting me." He said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, they got a kidney. I'm heading over right now." He says, "Do I need to come?" I said, "No," because he was in training, because he works for Kraft Nabisco Mondelez. I said, "No, you won't make it here in time." I said, "Just get here when you can." And then I called Kent. And Kent, he said, "Unbelievable." He says, "You got it. Unbelievable." He said, "You are one lucky guy." I called Armand. This whole time as I'm walking, I'm running back and forth as I could. Armand was almost in tears and just, he said, "Vaughn," he said, "I'm so happy for you. You got it." And then I had to call my wife. And I said, "Honey," she says, "Hey, sweetie, how you doing?" We're on FaceTime. So, "How you doing?" I said, "Sweetie,
Take your time, big guy. Take your time.
She said, I said, "I'm going in." She said, "You're going in where?" I said, "I got a kidney." And she just broke down in tears right there. She said, "What?" She said, "You're going now?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going right now." And at the time, my wife, she was getting ready to have her hip replaced, hip surgery. And this was her 3rd hip replacement, because the one she got one, got an infection. They had to put a temporary hip in, and they were waiting for the infection to clear up to get the 3rd one in. And the doctors at Fort Belvoir Hospital were in coordination with the doctors at Walter Reed Hospital, because her surgeon, Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGill, he said to me as I was sitting there, he said, "Vaughn," he says, he said, "this is probably going to happen for you." He says, "So let's all be ready." That team was talking to my team over the same time. I can't forget my aunt Costello Edwards in Fayetteville, North Carolina, who was married to my uncle. She watched her husband die on the machine. She said, "Vaughn, I want to tell you," she says, "it's going to be okay. You're going to be all right." And she quoted scripture to me. She said, Mark 11:24. He said, "Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe it." It said, believe you've already gotten it, and it shall be yours." And I memorized that prayer, and I said it every day, every day, every day. And then when I told, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
And I told her, and she says, "God is faithful." She said, I told you would get it. So when I told my wife, and she was in tears, she was catatonic. She says, I will get on my walker. She says, I will drive there to be with you. I said, no. I said, not just yet. I said, you rest. I'll let you know when I can. So I'm going back to the main entrance of the hospital, go over to the surgical side, get in the elevator, go to the 4th floor. By the time I get to the 4th floor, they're there waiting. I come out of the elevator, and they're waiting for me. And my nurse, Dennis, he grabs me. He says, come on, let's go. He says, I'll carry your bag for you, the whole spiel. And one person dragged me, another person reading stuff to me, and they get me in the room. And I was literally I remember I took my shoes off in the hallway, trying to hop into the chair and stuff like that, talking to my wife. And they're doing this. They said, okay, my phone is ringing like crazy, the whole spiel. And I'm trying to get ready. And they're literally taking my clothes off of me. And I'm sitting there naked, except for with the backwards gown on and stuff like that, and the little puffy thing on my head. And I'm trying to talk to the wife. And Dennis, when he says, okay, he says, Vaughn, we got to get you calm down. You got to calm down a little bit. And he says, who talking to? I'm talking to my wife. He takes the phone. He says, hey, Mrs. Reynolds. She says, between her sobs, she can say, you can call me Tony. And he says, Tony, she says, I want to let you know. She says, we got him. He's in good hands, and we're going to take care of him. She says, I give you my word, we're going to take care of him. He said, but right now, he says, but right now, he's got to go. He said, he's got to go. And he says, I'll call you as soon as we're done. And so I told my wife, I said, bye-bye, I'll call you back as soon as I'm done. Said, so I hung the phone up, and then they went to work and stuff. So they were doing everything they could do to get me ready. The hospital, they wheeled me in the pre-op, and they would talk to me, and what's your name, your rank, your birthday, why are you here for, this and that. And I told them everything. They said, okay, we're going to saddle block you where they give you the injections in your hips and stuff. They said, we're going to do that and stuff so we can make you feel better. And they're running IVs in my arms and the hips, the whole spiel. And I said, this ain't going to hurt. And they said, man, it hurt when they're going into my hips and stuff like that. So they got all that done, the whole spiel. So they said, okay, we got you numb. The OR is ready. The whole spiel says, okay, let's go. And I was praying the whole spiel, and I said, can you do me a favor? They prop me up just a little bit because I don't like being laying on my back as I'm going down. I said, because it gives me vertigo and I can't see where I'm going. He said, sure. So they propped me up, the whole spiel. He says, we're going to give you a little bit of the cocktail to get you going and stuff like that. So he gave me some to the IV, and I was like, and I said, oh, there it is. I said, I feel something starting to happen, the whole spiel. So they get me into the room, and I've always been one of these guys apprehensive. I don't like seeing surgical tools. Because I know sooner or later, that tool is going to be in me, and this makes me go nutty and stuff. So I walk in there, and I see it looked like 2 picnic tables with every kind of stainless steel clamp and tool on it like this. I'm like, oh, goodness. So I turn my head and look the other way, and there's a big stainless steel mixing bowl that I see there, and it has like a mesh thing going through it like that. And I said, I said, is that it? Doc says, yeah, you want to look at it? I said, no, I do not want to see that. And I remember they were sanitizing the operating table. And it's like a sponge they put you on. They sanitize that, also alcohol. And I laid on it. And I said, this is wet. I said, I've never been to sleep on this. This is wet. It's uncomfortable. And he says, oh, don't you worry about that. We got something for you for that too, right? So he says, okay. And it was just a beehive of activity. And they said, okay, this and that. He says, okay, Mr. Reynolds, are you ready? I said, I'm as ready as I'm ever going to be. He said, okay, we're going to give you some gas here and stuff to get you ready. And it's going to taste a little peppery. He said, but I want you to count back from 100. I'm like, yeah, I've seen this before. I'm going to count, and nothing's going to happen to me. I'm going to go all the way back. He says, okay, start counting. I said, 1, and that was it. I was out. Then the next thing I know, I wake up. I don't know how many hours it was. Said, and my older brother Leon standing right there. Right? And as I woke up, he says, I've been waiting for you. He says, I knew you'd be okay. And stuff. And he was there, the whole spill. And I looked down and I saw the scar and the drainage patch and the tube and everything like that. And all I could do was the first thing I said when I woke up, I said, where's Tony? Where's Leon? He says, I'm right here. He said, He said, Chelsea's bringing Tony up. And I said, asked the doctor, I said, who did this for me? And they said, well, all we know right now, all we authorized to tell you, it was a 40-year-old woman from Tennessee who her last wish was, because I think she some sort of brain disorder, might have been asked, I don't know. They said she willed all of her organs to go to military veterans. Said so.
Wow.
And the glorious part about that is the guy in the room beside me, First Sergeant Retired Jermaine Ellington. He got the left kidney the same day. I got the right kidney 1 hour right after him. So we became kidney brothers and kidney warriors, and I just spoke to him 2 days ago. And so we are the best of friends now, kidney warriors, kidney ambassadors. And as I came about, and I was sitting in there, and I couldn't say thank you enough to everyone involved. And the next day, the thing I heard some commotion out in the hallway. And I heard someone say, where is my husband? That was my wife. They wheeled her in and stuff. She came in because she couldn't walk. She was still in the walker. And she came in, and she was that's about as burgundy as these shirts are because she's a redhead. And she was just catatonic. And then we were there and stuff. And it's just, I can't describe the feeling. One of the feelings I had was survivor's guilt, because on the list there's over 100,000 people waiting for kidneys. UNOS had me I went from number 100,000 to number 11,000 to number 3 to number 2 in 3 days.
Wow.
Get a kidney.
Wow. Did the kidney begin to work right away? Did you have complications, issues?
That day, it started working automatically. He said before they even closed me up, it started
Beautiful.
working. When I got in recovery and I woke up, I was already making urine into the catheter bag and stuff.
Beautiful.
If I can remember, on the all discharge papers, let's see, I went from a EGFR of 8 to 17 to 23 in like 30 hours.
Wow.
It started working automatically. So my kidney warrior, because we named our kidneys, he calls his Tennessee whiskey. I call mine Tennessee Titan.
Like the football team.
Yes, sir. Exactly.
Were there any complications or issues?
No. I've been a normal, healthy guy. I had no complications, no issues. Knock on wood. I thank God. I'm blessed. No problems at all. The only thing, it wasn't a complication, but just because I'm a big guy. I'm almost 6'3". Right? They cut real low on my right side, and they said a lot of times they cut down. They go through some of the nerves in the quadricep, and my quadricep balled up the size of a grapefruit, that large muscle group. And it hurt so bad. The physical therapist, she had her elbow in it, pressing to get that muscle back out. Because first thing you know, let's get you up and let's get you walking. And
right.
And I was literally in tears. I said, but I'm going to walk. I'm going to make it. And I thought that was the longest walk of my life. It was so painful. And she said, oh, something hurting? Is your kidney hurting? I said, no. I said, my quadricep that's hurting. I said, it's the quad that's hurting real bad. That's when they came in, and all the doctors said, the nurses, they said, yeah, a lot of times when they go down that far and stuff, they can get close to that nerve and they can nick it a little bit. And it's been a year, and even today, now I don't have any problem with the quadricep because I'm out doing walking. I walk every other day now as much as I can. I'm walking anywhere from 3 to 5, sometimes 7 miles at a pop. But even on the incision, I still get what they call the zings and stings.
Wow.
Because if I wear the belt the wrong way or something like that, and it starts pushing right on, as my youngest daughter, she calls it my fridney, my front kidney is what she calls it. If the belt is uncomfortable, it'll press on there a little bit and give me some of the zings and stings on it.
Okay. How long were you hospitalized? When were you released to go home?
Let's see, I think that was the 17th of. Let me see. I don't have the 17th was a Tuesday or was it Wednesday? I went home Friday evening.
Okay.
So I wasn't in there that long, like 3 days, and I was so tired. I said, I felt terrible. I felt like somebody rearranged my plumbing. My doctor said, well, yeah, they did. And I said, Doc, I said, is it normal for me or another patient to go home this day? He said, yeah. He said, let me tell you. He said, because he said they obliterated my immune system when they started. And he said, the hospital's full of sick people. He said, the best place for you to do is go home on, I had a grocery bag full of medications. And you know that too. And
Yes.
all kind of medications. He said, the best place for you to go is go home and stuff. So, I mean, and my brother, Leon Reynolds, my sister-in-law, Sonia Reynolds, my wife, Tanya D. Reynolds, my children, Chelsea Reynolds, Taylor Reynolds, my mother-in-law, Dottie Carter. There's a plethora, a strong support group that were all there. We all did the mask and the sanitation and the cleaning, the whole spiel, and helping me upstairs and the whole spiel. My stepmom, Miss Elaine Carter, my stepdad, William Carter, they all came. They all did that. They all helped out. My church did the meal trains and stuff like that while I was isolated upstairs, literally taking all the medication and stuff like that. So a fantastic support group that helped me out. It was just an amazing group of people.
Wow. Wow. Let's talk about your current kidney health for a minute. How have you been since the time that you were transplanted? Have you had any issues,
No,
complications? How are you doing?
no complications at all, none whatsoever, and stuff. Now, I still have my native kidneys inside and stuff. So the doctors would ever do my lab work and stuff, and every time labs come up, that apprehension comes in and stuff because I don't want to talk about the big R word, rejection, and you're just so afraid of it and stuff. But my native kidneys are still there, so every once in a while there'll be just a tiny, tiny bit of protein or a little bit of hematuria. Sometimes it's zero, sometimes it's one. And as the doctor said, well, sometimes the stick is very sensitive for the urine and stuff like that. But he said no complications whatsoever at all. As the one urologist said, or nephrologist, I said, well, I said, it feels like I'm on borrowed time. And Dr. Ewan, she said, well, yeah, she said, Vaughn, we're all on borrowed time. She said, but you're 60, that kidney's 40. She says, that kidney's going to outlive you. She said, you take care of it. And you said, that kidney's going to take care of you for a long, long time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's talk about some of your kidney advocacy experiences. I understand that you've done some work with the American Kidney Fund. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, sir. I just recently did a podcast with them because when I heard about them, I started working with them and talking to them. And I told them, I said, there's a guy out there I know that would be perfect for the Heroes of Hope Award. I nominated Mr. Allen and I nominated Kent Bressler. And so I said, two great guys. I said, you guys got to make your choice and stuff. So they went in and they gave Mr. Allen the Hero of Hope Award.
Talk about Chet.
Oh yeah, Chet. Yeah, Chet Allen. Chet Allen Bennett is his name. I was calling him Mr. Allen. Chet Allen Bennett. So he got the award. And then we just had the Gala of Hope Award. The ball, I think, was the 8th of October, which is the pictures I sent you and stuff. And through that, I was meeting a lot of people and talking to them and stuff. And I said, now, how much money goes to the kidney fund? How many of the people are being served for it? What's the process of it? What can we do to help people out? They said, you can talk, be a mentor to people. Because my wife says I have the gift of gab. I always said I'm not a people person, the whole spiel. And while we were at the gala dinner, Meredith, and her last name escapes me at this point, and I do apologize for that. And Kent mentioned me, not Kent, Mr. Allen mentioned me, and she said, well, what's your story? And I told her, because the 8th was the Hero of Hope Award. The 17th was my kidney anniversary.
In October.
Yes, sir. So I told her the story of how everything happened. And she said, that's an interesting story. She said, I would like to write back to you and stuff, and maybe we do another podcast so you can tell your story. And so that's what I told her. And I said, since then, talking to Shannon and Kent and you and Armand, they asked, could I be mentor some of the veterans who are in there? So I began to mentor some of the veterans that are in there. Mr. Chet asked, could I speak to some of the men's group down there? And I said I would. The Dove group, which is the page that I was on for this military helping military transplant, and I speak to other veterans about that. And now it's to the point I will talk to anyone about anything. I stop. I said, "You want to talk to my kidneys?" I said, "Let me tell you about my kidney story. Let me tell you about living donations." I said, "You don't have to wait till you die." I said, "You can save a life right now." I said, "Through altruistic." That's my new word. Is altruistic donations. I said, "Let me talk about hyperfiltration, about how your other kidney works." I said, "Kidney solutions." We say, "Share your spare." I said, anytime I can talk to anyone, that is what I'm going to do. I'm trying to start a organ registration and a living organ drive at the church, and anyone who I can speak to about that, because there's just so many people who don't know, and it's an interesting story. It's not a sad story. I was out walking one day doing my normal walk, and I came across a gentleman. We just started walking and talking, and I told him about an organ donation. And he said, "Well," he said, "I don't know. I'm kind of worried about that because if they need your organs, you might be on the table and they won't do that." I said, "They won't try to save you." I said, "No doctor is ever going to let you pass on the table. That's against the Hippocratic Oath. It's socially unacceptable. That is unacceptable." I said, "You cannot buy organs." And they said, "Well, because both of us are black and so they had to take advantage of them." I said, "We're both men." I let him go on. I said, "Well, that's odd." I said, "Because my kidney's from a 40-year-old white woman." I said, "So we are all alike." I said, "We're all God's children. We are equal in sight." I said, "I'm living proof of that." And I didn't get mad at him because there was nothing to get mad because he did not know. I said, so I just educated him. I said, "Here's what it is. I'm not going to blow you up. I'm going to tell you what it's all about." I was in the commissary one time shopping, and some older gentleman, he said, "Well, you're wearing a mask." He said, "I see you still wearing your mask." I said, "Well, yes, I am." "Well, they say you can breathe in more CO2 and stuff like that. It's harmful, this and that." And I said, "I'm glad you educated me on that." I said, "But I wear my mask." I said, "Because," I said, I'm an organ recipient." I said, "And I've got to be careful about it, the ones that I'm on." I said, "My mask is for your safety. Your mask is for my safety. We wear our masks so we can be safe to each other." I said, "But if you are so inclined to want to talk about mask safety, then that means I'm inclined to talk to you about organ donation." I said, "You can still donate an organ." He said, "Well, I think I may be too old." I said, they have 70-year-olds,
80.
75-year-olds who are organ donors. I said, "Take some time." I said, "Let's get educated about this." And he felt embarrassed and stuff. But I said, "No, no need to be embarrassed. I'm not shaming you, nothing like that." I said, "People just don't know." And I believe my charge is during my prayers. I said, I'm a deep man of faith, deep faith. And I said, "God, if this is my direction that you want me to go, so you point my feet and point my shoulders, and this is what I'm going to go this direction. I'm going to run this direction and talk to anybody I can, help anyone I can about kidney advocacy." I said, "Kidney Solutions, the Dove Foundation, AKF, that's Uncle Jim's podcast. Anyone I can talk to, I'm going to talk to."
All right. But before we conclude the broadcast this evening, is there anything that you would like to say to our audience?
Um, I would tell anyone, especially men, if you're not feeling well, go get checked. Be your own advocate. Demand that you get a full physical and blood work. Don't just say, "Oh, it's not hurting, so I'm not going to go." There's something wrong in there. Your body is a finely tuned sewing machine. And if something starts going wrong with it, you're going to know it. I know people who spend more time on their cars, washing their cars and taking care of their hobbies than they do their own body. And I told one gentleman, I said, "Why do you do so much time?" "Oh, this is my car. This is my baby. So and so like this." I said, "You're going to get a new car in 3 or 4 years, right?" He said, "Well, yeah, that's what I do." I said, "You're never going to get a new body until we pass on." I said, "Why don't you go now? Go get your physical." I said, "You're over 40. Go." I said, "Go see your urologist. Go see your cardiologist. Go to nephrology. Do these things." And women too. So you go get yourself checked out. Don't sit here and let someone say, "Oh, well, it's just an anomaly. We're going to look at it." Don't be like me. Do not be like me. There's a whole lot of living left. God sees it. "Vaughn, there's a lot of living you got left." He said, "I got a plan for you." I said, "Okay." I said, "Okay, Lord, that's what I'm going to do." Tell folks, don't scrimp on your health. At no means, don't do that.
Excellent. Excellent. I wanted to thank you, Vaughn, for coming on tonight and talking to us. I've never had anybody on before that was as knowledgeable about Alport's syndrome or the military. And, your talk about your experiences, your kidney story is just remarkable. And the advocacy work that you're doing for the AKF and the C. Allen Foundation, the Dove Foundation, Kidney Solutions, the work that you're doing with military veterans it's just remarkable. And
Thank
I
you.
wanted to commend you on that, and I wanted to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and giving us the opportunity to hear it. And I promise you that in the next week, 10 days or so, I'm going to spread it around a little bit.
Yes, sir.
As you know, I've got around 100 groups on Facebook, and I'm going to put this broadcast in every single one of those groups. And I have another 100 groups or so that I have permission to post my broadcast to, and I'm going to do that as well. And if there's a social
Thank you.
media platform out there, I'm on it.
Thank you, sir. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Oh, no worries at all. And I want folks to know that if they wanted more information about you or about Alports, about the things we've discussed tonight, about your advocacy work, the groups that you advocate for, if you go to my Facebook page, your broadcast is pinned at the top of my page. It's live now as we're speaking. And in the comments to that broadcast is all of my research, all of the links that I found that talk about you, talk about Alports, talk about the military, talk about the various groups that you advocate for. And that'll be there all week. So if people are interested, they want to drill down or they have questions, there's a place they can go to get answers. You can always contact your Uncle Jim, and of course you can contact Vaughn directly with anything that you want to talk about. So I just wanted to welcome you to the worldwide kidney community and advocacy work that you're doing. And I just wanted to tell you, I'm really very proud of you, Vaughn. Nice going.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate everything you guys do. I look forward. Anybody, anytime, call me, email me. You can email me, Facebook me, call my personal phone. I will stop, drop, get up and talk to anybody and help in any way I can. It's always about this. I said the new charge is that I've been given this gift and I'm going to live it to the best of my ability. And the charge is always push it forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had so much fun during this broadcast. Thank you so much
Jim.
for that. I want to let people know next week, Friday, November 22nd, we're going to be talking with Michael and Christina Gilchrist. It's the second time they've been on the broadcast. Michael is involved in a paired donation situation. He's trying to get a kidney for his wife, and he wants to talk to us a little bit about the difficulties having in donating kidney. I guess being a kidney donor is not easy. So Michael and Christina are going to be on. Maybe they'll even bring Pomsky the dog. You never know. So we'll be checking that out. And I wanted to thank everybody for checking out the broadcast tonight. And wow, what a job that Vaughn did. I mean, just a tremendous amount of information about Alports and his kidney story is remarkable. So if you missed the broadcast or you have friends that missed the broadcast, I'll be making an instant replay as soon as we're done tonight. So you can catch the instant replay, and it'll be posted to YouTube. It'll be there forever. Okay, so you can always check that out. So I want to thank everybody for watching the broadcast. Vaughn, thank you for coming on tonight.
Thanks again.
And I will see you next week, my friends. Take care.
Sir. Take care, sir. Have a great night.
You too.
All right.